Chapter 31, Author's Message to Entrepreneurs. The author's attempt to organize a fellowship of Russian entrepreneurs in accord with the certain spiritual principles has revealed an evident desire for such a coming together on the part of many entrepreneurs. Notices were sent out all over Moscow. A wider distribution throughout Russia would have entailed a substantial expenditure. The lack of funding and consequently the ultimate failure of the project led to nowhere. Anastasia's plans began to seem unrealizable. During my second visit with her, however, she told me there were no dead-end situations, only that I should not have altered the sequence that she had prescribed. The book should have come first, which would have spread the right information and prevented the organizational principles from being tied to monetary concerns. This second visit also settled another question. An organizational task force had been set up in Moscow to spearhead the formation of the fellowship, but we could not come to a decision on either the selection criteria for new members or how the selection committee should be constituted. Anastasia stated the following: one's heartfelt impulsion and one's aspiration to strive for such a fellowship are the principal criteria for eligibility. Nobody has the right to refuse access to anyone manifesting such qualities. One's past record is irrelevant, for the one who was most worthy yesterday may well turn out to be the least worthy today, and vice versa. Subsequently, when you get together to determine the eligibility criteria according to impulses of your hearts, you will also be able to work out the specific terms on which applicants are accepted into the fellowship. The blame for altering the sequence prescribed by Anastasia falls, of course, on me. To those Moscow entrepreneurs who wanted to join the fellowship, I hereby offer my sincere apologies. First, for postponing the initial conference to a later date, and secondly, for the consequent drain on your time and finances. The task force was indeed made up of dedicated entrepreneurs. Many of you had limited time to devote to the project, but you found the time, or stole it from something else. You worked on drafting documents and the principles for the future society. The secretariat, too, similarly made up of Muscovites, was fueled by enthusiasm. In addition, Moscow students put together a magnificent computer version of the future society's catalog. It made it all the more painful for me to look back, and once I realized my mistake, see the hopelessness of the situation. The only way out was to muster the strength needed to correct the mistake and write the book. Without a word of explanation to anyone, explanations seemed to be impossible at that point, I went off by myself and began to write. It is only now that the book exists and is spreading more and more across Russia and starting to fulfill the functions specified for it by Anastasia that I can talk about the future. I am more confident now about the possibility of seeing such a society actually come into being. The reaction to the book indicates that it will attract sufficient number of entrepreneurs from the various regions of the country. The conference will take place. There will be a fellowship. In acting on my own, I may well have offended some of those who worked alongside me in Moscow. I should particularly like to single out 3 Moscow students who gave their all to assisting and participating in the secretariat of the future society. They were the only ones who keyboarded the text of the first book on their computers and kept on keyboarding even after their exam session started. I wasn't in a position to compensate them for their work. They knew this, understood the situation, but still went on keyboarding. Others would have probably reacted with understanding had they known the whole picture. If that applies to any of you, I apologize for my lack of trust in you and for my temporary disappearance. Of course, there is a great deal more I need to learn and understand, including the degree to which Anastasia herself has been involved in all of this. I'd like to know just how this reclusive young woman from the Siberian taiga managed not only to draw up plans like these, but also have the time to implement them in real life. It's not that she is predicting the future. She is literally creating the future. She struggles to bring it about and feels the struggle in her heart. In fact, it is something on the order of a master business plan which she has formulated in her head, keeping track of all its details down to the nuances of psychological probabilities. She is working her hardest to make it all come about and calling on us to participate in its realization. But we are not simply blind mice, but more normal, professionally experienced adults, and we must understand that a single individual, especially one still relatively new to entrepreneurial practice, cannot foresee everything ahead of time. Anastasia affirms, just the organization alone, the spiritual, yes, spiritual contact among people, such people as entrepreneurs, is a salutary reaction of cosmic proportions. There is no need to dictate what will happen next. What will happen next will point out its own path and set its priorities in the occurrences of daily life. What kind of reaction is this? What path is she alluding to? Even though her aspiration to the light can be felt intuitively, nevertheless, we must make sense of everything ourselves and work out the details. I wish you all happiness and success.